This is Talk with John here on KMMU.org. And you can also see us live on X, Rumble, as well as YouTube. And right now, today, I've got David Pyne joining me. But before I get to him, I want to get this show off to a proper start, as it were. I hope my show is a gift back to my forefathers, the founding fathers, and may it be an acceptable token to our Father above. Then the show mantra: where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Where the Spirit of Christ is, there will be liberty. And the greater the Spirit of Christ, the greater liberty will be. All right, so let's get to David Pyne. We unfortunately, for me, that is, don't have David as long as we normally do. Normally, David and I talk for somewhere in the neighborhood of about, I'd say somewhere in the neighborhood of an hour and a half. But today we have limited time because he's got to get back east. So I made a commitment to him that I bring him on earlier than he normally joins us. So let's get to it. David, you have been a very, very busy man. You've produced I want to say it's 3 articles for sure since we last talked. Leaking the Trump 100-day peace plan might be successful in achieving the end of the Ukraine war. Then the next one that you sent out, if I remember, and I hope that I get these in right, the correct order, the U.S.-Russian peace talks to end the war with Ukraine will begin. That was on February 17th, so yesterday. Those, I guess, kind of depends on what side of the planet we're talking about. And then before that, the potential pitfalls of Trump's plan for the U.S. to occupy Gaza. And if I remember correctly, that one came out in less than I want to say it was in less than 24 hours. I want to say it's the same day that I heard it. You popped it. You put that out. So it was. I thought that, wow.
2 days actually, but yeah, that was a quick one.
Okay, so but I was like, wow, he's popped one out really fast. This is faster than he normally gets to it, or at least it seemed like it. So, which one do you want to start with first?
Well, I guess let's start with Gaza. Because I want to spend most of the time on Ukraine. I think the Trump Gaza plan was kind of an overreach. Hoping it was just kind of a pie in the sky idea that was designed to get put the fear of God in Hamas and get them to agree to disarm. They actually have agreed to exit the government, to step down from power as part of the Phase 2 agreement. But they're not going to give up their weapons, and that's kind of a deal breaker for the Israelis. So I'm pretty pessimistic that Phase 2 will happen. I think it might start. I think negotiations are going to start shortly, about 2+ weeks delayed from the schedule. The Trump plan was essentially to ethnically cleanse all the Palestinians from Gaza and never let them come back. That's right now they have. The Gazans have 85% of their population are refugees. That's the equivalent of 243 million Americans. They've had, 2.6% of their population, I think, has been killed off since the war started by the Israelis. That's like 6.5 million Americans equivalent in terms of our population percentage. And then another, I think 4.6% or so are wounded, and that's like 14 million more Americans. So, the scale of the devastation in Gaza is beyond anything we've seen, really. It's worse than the terror bombings of Germany and Japan, the starvation campaigns that we witnessed during World War II. It's it's not a Holocaust, but it's very similar to what Hitler did before the Holocaust, which was to uproot all the Jews from their homes and gather them in ghettos, where they were in really deplorable conditions. So I was working on a new peace plan for Gaza that I think would be a lot more humanitarian, that Trump might agree to. But then all this news about Ukraine happened. I had to pop out a couple articles to address that.
Well, let's do this. I'm reminded from time to time that I have listeners, new listeners, old listeners that may not be exactly familiar with what we're talking about. So back a couple weeks ago, I want to say around February 5th, both Donald Trump and Netanyahu met from Israel. The prime minister from Israel met to discuss, have discussions just in general. And then both of them were at their own podiums, and Trump says the U.S. will take control and ownership of Gaza and deport 2.3 million Gazans, presumably using tens of thousands of U.S. troops to do so, and historically unprecedented nation-ending operation. Now, that is your headline. Now, I could have sworn that he said we can take a break to take care of your power if we need to. We can absolutely do that. So let's just go. What will work best for you on that, David?
Let me go ahead and answer whatever question you have about Gaza that you were posing, and then let's take a break.
Okay, so I don't remember him exactly coming out and saying that we would have troops on the ground. I don't know how he could accomplish his stated goal. And there's also a part of me that when I heard this whole thing, I was like, how much of this is to also get Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt and surrounding countries to go, oh, maybe we want to help this whole process so the United States doesn't come in and take, quote unquote, take over. Now, Netanyahu, I think, was like, yeah, sure, Donald, please take on that trouble all you want to, because bottom line, you may not love them, but boy, even the Palestinians are not wanted in Jordan. They're not wanted in any other country, let alone Israel. So now you can, I will hear everyone's cry and yell saying, hey, bottom line is how would you feel if you were kicked out of your own home? Yeah, that's true. I hear that. But the bottom line is they are still warring. And when you go to war and you cross a boundary, in my opinion, even when you're let in the front door, you still go rape, pillage, and kill, which I believe they did. There's going to be consequences for doing those type of things. So, David, I just said quite a mouthful. I guess those are like 2 or 3 points in there. So I'll let you handle it as you'd like.
Yeah, I think in response to your first question, Trump clarified that he does not intend to send U.S. troops to Gaza, and he says that Israel will hand it over. So the clear implication there is that Israel will provide a permanent occupation force, both during the time that they're trying to eradicate Hamas initially, assuming Hamas doesn't agree to preemptively agree to surrender and leave the country. Then I think Israel would be really hard pressed to justify resuming the war. But Israel would provide the troop presence while the U.S. would take ownership of Gaza. So we'd essentially seize the territory, but it would be transferred from Israel illegally, of course, because Israel doesn't own it either. And then the U.S. could develop it. And I think the Israelis, if there were any forced deportations, it wouldn't be the U.S. doing it, would be the Israelis doing it. So needless to say, Iran and all the other most, Arab countries in the area, Iran, of course, not being Arab, would react very harshly to that. And it could risk the eruption of another, missile exchange at the least between Iran and Israel. So I don't think that's really where we want to go. I think Trump has been a lot smarter and more prudent with regards to Russia and Ukraine.
So what do you think is the right move in a nutshell?
Yeah, so it's basically we mandate that Hamas step down from power. They disarm.
You think they will?
Well, they already agreed to that. They've agreed to that as part of phase 2. So that's a done deal.
They've agreed to it. The question is, do you think they will? I'm sorry, I'm going to hold you to that.
So the condition, of course, is that they will do so conditioned upon an acceptable peace agreement with Israel. So, in other words, if Israel agrees to a full military withdrawal, returning all the, for lack of a better word, hostages that Israel has taken on their end, 5,000 Palestinians that they've arrested, including women and children, most of which were in Israel, which they arrested with little reason. Then Hamas will agree to step down. But looks like my power is getting real low, so I'm going to need to charge that. Can we take a break?
Absolutely. I'll take you off screen for a moment and let you get that taken care of. When you get back on, David, let me know. All right. Well, just give me a thumbs up and I'll be able to see it. So, folks, let's do this. Let me do a proper introduction of David Pyne. That would be a good moment for us to do that. So, David T. Pyne, Esquire, is a former U.S. Army Combat Arms and Headquarters Staff Officer who is in charge of armaments cooperation with the former Soviet Union, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and the Americas from 2000 to 2003. He has an MA in National Security Studies from Georgetown University. He currently serves as the president of the Task Force on National and Homeland Security and as a member of the Committee of the Present Danger China. He recently served as defense and foreign policy advisor to former Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. He has also co-authored the best-selling new book, Catastrophe Now, America's Last Chance to Avoid an EMP Disaster, and his new book, Restoring Strategic Deterrence, will be published, I believe, here sometime real soon. And he serves as the editor of the Real War newsletter. You can go to his Substack at dpyne.substack.com. So that's David Pyne. You can go and find his newsletter, The Real War, at dpyne.substack.com. And he's also been previously was a contributor to the National Interest. All right, David, looks like you've got that thing up and running and taken care of. Thank you for getting that resolved, because I'd hate for you to be gone early. Let me put it that way. So, okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think that this whole idea of removing all these so if I understood, one of the things that Donald Trump said is, well, why wouldn't they want to leave? Well, a lot of people don't want to leave their homes, even if they're bombed, into smithereens. They want to rebuild and stay. How much of an outcry is there? Because I'm not hearing from the international news that there's a big outcry that the Gazans want to leave. I'm sure there's enough. I'm sure that there are some that would want to, but I'll bet there are many more that want to stay. So, what do you think is going to wind up happening? I just kind of have a hard time seeing this come to pass.
I do too. Yeah. If you look at Ukraine, the war in Ukraine, which has been much less destructive and less devastating to the Ukrainians, they experienced 10 million refugees. They had 10 million refugees. So 25% of their population had the option to leave. A lot more would have left, but they were men, and they knew they would get shot by Ukrainian border guards if they tried to leave Ukraine, because it's illegal. It's been illegal since the war started for any men within ages I think 25 to 40 or even 60 to leave the country because they're draft age. And Ukraine, Zelensky had decided to prolong the war unnecessarily by 3 years, and I think wants to fight it indefinitely. So, in Gaza, we haven't seen anyone leave because Israel and Egypt together have blocked all the exits. Israel has been blockading, engaging in illegal air, land, and sea blockade of Gaza, I think from before the war, but certainly they tightened it after the war. Before the war, they did allow, several thousand Palestinians to enter Israel as guest workers that were, well vetted. Again, 5,000 of those they arrested after the October 7th terrorist attacks by Hamas. But then Egypt only allowed non-Palestinians, kind of people that were in Gaza that weren't Palestinians, to enter Egypt after Israel began its invasion. And Israel and Egypt together haven't allowed any Gazans to leave, with the exception of those in extreme medical urgent situations. For example, there was I think a 2-year-old girl that had her legs blown off, or one leg. Correction. She had a situation where she had gangrene and was going to die if she didn't get medical care in Jordan. So I think within a couple of days, Israel permitted her and her mom. Initially, it was just going to be her and her mom to fly to Jordan, and then the brother was going to be left behind. And then they relented and allowed the brother to leave. So almost no one, essentially. And then Netanyahu had the gall to say, isn't it a good idea to let the Palestinians leave Gaza when it's been destroyed? And it's kind of a joke, because he didn't really admit that it was Israel that destroyed Gaza, number one, that turned it into, essentially what Trump has called the surface of the moon. It's just been totally blown away. And I'm sorry to laugh about that. I'm not laughing at the humanitarian disaster. I'm laughing at the hypocrisy on Netanyahu's part. And then, of course, the fact that, if it was such a great idea, how come Netanyahu didn't let anyone leave? He could have never opened up any humanitarian corridors outside of Gaza, where he could have sent Israeli ships to evacuate Gazan women and children. I don't think Hamas would have interfered with that, and he chose not to.
So let me ask you, why is Egypt not allowing these people to come in? Because you said both Israel and Egypt are stopping them. Why is Egypt stopping them?
Well, Egypt is led by President Sisi. He's an Egyptian general that took power over a decade ago. And he is, the Islamic Jihad, or the Muslim Brotherhood, I guess, is fighting kind of an insurgency campaign against the Egyptian government in the Sinai. So, the Palestinians have been pretty radicalized by the Israeli, starvation blockade, bombings, and everything else that they've done to the Gazan citizens. So they would be kind of a hotbed, I think. And plus, their economy is like the 177th highest in the world. So basically, they're like the 17th lowest. And so they're poor as can be, and if some terrorists, some Islamic Jihad folks throw money at them, they're going to be happy to accept the job and, try to fight the Egyptian government. So just from a security perspective, he views a large influx of Palestinian refugees as a major security threat, and rightly so.
So does the Gaza Strip go all the way up to Israel's northern border?
No, the Gaza Strip is very tiny. It's 1/57th the size of Israel. So it's not. It's very small. It's one of the most.
So it literally is landlocked.
In the world.
So it is literally landlocked between Egypt and between Jerusalem. So now it is true that it's on a little strip of the Mediterranean, but the Tel Aviv is to the north, their closest other country, you could say, to Gaza is Egypt.
It's right on the border of the Sinai. And, if there's a deal to be had, it would be Egypt leasing a territory the size of Gaza on its border with Gaza to the Gazan refugees to settle there. And the U.S. could, and that was going to be one of my ideas. It's not a very humanitarian idea, but it's better than what's being offered right now by Trump. where they would, Trump would pay a substantial amount of money every year that the territory is leased to the Palestinians, and there'd be major border security, so that whole area would be cordoned off, by the Egyptian military and security forces. So it wouldn't be a threat to Egypt, but there would be some degree of humiliation if they didn't get paid enough, where essentially they would be giving up part of their territory, and it'd be a very tiny amount of territory in relation to the size of Egypt, to the Palestinians for an indefinite period of time.
Well, let's table this part of the discussion. Let's move on to what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening with Russia, and what's happening with President Trump in his first 100 days. So, I want to say something that was trumpeted by the left was, hey, Donald Trump's been in for 12 days and he hasn't ended the Ukraine war. I thought he said he was going to end it in 24 hours. I don't know how many places I saw that on social media, as well as it started to be quite the story when it came to, let me put it this way, the lamestream Democrat media definitely was putting that out. So he is less than 100 days in, and he's working on a peace plan already to end the Ukraine war. Now, something that I found that has been very interesting is we're starting to hear a bunch of whiner baby crying countries over their not being included at the big boy table. Well, I'm sorry, you're not big boys. You haven't been paying, you haven't been keeping an army. I'm like, to France, to Poland, maybe I don't quite feel this strongly, but to France, to Germany, to basically the rest of Europe, I say, you guys have teeny little budgets. You've been relying on the United States to take care of you and keep the bad man away. And now the United States is trying to keep two international bad men away, China and Russia. Bottom line is, where have you guys been with all of your money? You've been, hopefully my mom will forgive me, but sucking off the American tit when it comes to our budget. You've been sucking off of us like a suckling child. We're going to treat you like a little child. I'm sorry. And then we have the conference that Rubio does down in Saudi Arabia. And, Donald Trump said, yeah, well, we'll eventually invite you to the big boy table. And Zelensky is like, no peace can happen without my opinion, buddy. Something tells me you can be removed from your position very quickly. All right. So if the United States really doesn't want you there, trust me, you won't be there. So, in a nutshell, where do we go from here? And what should we cover with Ukraine and what Donald Trump's done in his first 100 days?
Well, first, let me say, I think President Trump is really the greatest foreign policy president we've seen since Reagan. I mean, in some respects, better than Reagan, but maybe not better than Reagan, but he's definitely on par with Reagan. Reagan, of course, helped negotiate an end to the Cold War with the Soviet Union. I just responded to a post that if you read any of my Twitter posts, there was one post that I had where Gordon Chain, who's a much more well-known national security expert than I am, mainly on China issues, he said, "Why should we talk to Russia?" And my response was, well, if that's what a peace through strength policy requires. If Reagan didn't talk to Gorbachev, the Soviet Union would still exist. We'd have, and all 20 of the captive nations would still be under the Soviet jackboot with Red Army forces. So, the idea you don't talk to your enemies is only strategic ignoramuses like right. Joe Biden and the neocons believe that we shouldn't talk to our enemies. I mean, I didn't support Nixon's trip to China. I mean, I always opposed that from the time I learned about it. I think it was a huge mistake. But I did support the idea of diplomacy.
But in a way, China
support the idea of meeting with enemy leaders.
China didn't have the strength that it does now. So, I mean, for you to have that opinion, I think was totally legitimate. It didn't have the military strength. It didn't have the economic strength. And it's kind of interesting how much economic and military strength they have after they were taken care of by the United States.
Yeah, I mean, we've built them into the best superpower enemy that trillions in U.S. Taxpayer subsidies can buy. And when I say trillions in subsidies, I mean subsidies. I mean, according to there was a book author, Michael Pillsbury, has given speeches multiple times. He's one of our top China experts, probably our best China expert. And he said that the U.S. has been giving China 165 billion a year in subsidies. So that's not even just trade. That's like direct giveaways across the board. But returning to the Ukraine topic, Trump, right before we came online here, I saw that Trump gave remarks demanding that Zelensky end his dictatorship and restore democracy by holding a democratic presidential election. And then he said he remarked that Zelensky only has a 4% approval rating, so he's sure to go down in defeat. So clearly, Trump is peeved that Zelensky rejected Trump's demand that he cede $500 billion worth of Ukrainian rare earths and oil and various other natural resources to the U.S. in a so-called joint investment fund. And now he's using that as a pretext to get tough with Zelensky. Zelensky he came out, I think it was this morning or yesterday, he said the U.S. will not, or Ukraine will not accept an ultimatum from the Trump administration to agree to a ceasefire or a peace deal in which Ukraine is not invited to negotiate or participate. And he said unless if the peace deal that Trump negotiates includes a full Russian withdrawal from all former Ukrainian territories, including Crimea, and Russia and Putin submits himself to be in prison for life as a war criminal and tried as a war criminal, and presumably at risk of being executed, then he'll accept it. So those are his conditions for a deal. Basically, he told Trump to take a hike. And that's not what you should do when you're a client state of the second, one of the top nuclear superpowers in the world.
Yeah, that's a really bad idea when you're getting billions and billions, and on top of that, we're now starting to search for the billions and billions that have been sent your way. How many of those dollars are going into your pocket? I don't think you want to do that. I think you want to play nice as opposed to trying to be obtuse, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's really foolish. What he should do is say this. These are some concessions that Ukraine would be willing to make, and he should be communicating that directly with the Trump administration. And he should welcome peace because it's in Ukraine's national security interests that the war be ended as quickly as possible. I mean, Ukraine their economy is in the dumps. They've lost 30% of their population. They've lost 19% of their territory. They've lost 1.1 million troops in terms of dead and wounded. And the longer this goes on, the greater the slaughter and the destruction will be. And the worse the terms that Russia will agree to. And not only that, if there's no peace agreement, the Ukrainian military is reportedly on the verge of total collapse. So they're currently outnumbered about 5-1 along most portions of the Eastern Front. Some of their battalions are down to 10% end strength, which means, a battalion's typically 500 men. They're down to 50 men, basically a platoon strength commanded by senior lieutenants that usually command platoons or companies. These battalions are usually commanded by lieutenant colonels, and they don't have enough infantry to man a BMP-2 infantry vehicle that has only 7 infantry in it. Some of them only have 2 infantry in the entire combat battalion.
All right, so you just said a type of military vehicle. Is that a troop carrier? That's not a tank, I'm assuming, correct?
Yes, BMP-2 is not a tank. It's a tracked infantry combat vehicle.
Okay. All right, so folks, David Pyne has put out 2 articles. And so I'm going, which one do you want to focus? I did bring up the 100 days, but let me give out the headlines for him. leaked Trump 100-day peace plan might be successful in achieving the end to the Ukraine war. That was done on January 29th. Then just yesterday, you put out U.S.-Russia peace talks to end the war in Ukraine will begin tomorrow. Now, so is there anything you want to take from that first 100 days and him trying to end the peace plan, or should we just go straight into the latest article?
Yeah, let's cover the peace plan first. So there was a peace plan that was leaked by, well, it was first covered by Ukrainian media. It was picked up by Newsweek and subsequently, I think, the Daily Mail, which is a UK newspaper. And, it basically expounded on what was purportedly Trump's 100-day peace plan. And it gave a timetable that, Trump is seemingly adhering to. So makes it seem that it might, in fact, be genuine. Essentially, what the timetable was, it was, Trump would make a call to both Putin and Zelensky by early February at the latest. That call would be followed up by a directed meeting between Trump and Putin and Trump and Zelensky in the late February to early March timeframe. There would be a peace framework that would be, negotiated and agreed to kind of in the March to maybe early to mid-April timeframe. And then by April 20th would be the deadline for a formal ceasefire agreement. And then May 9th would be the date when by which a formal peace agreement would be signed. That wouldn't just be an armistice agreement like some have advocated for, and even I was advocating for in 2022, but it would be a full comprehensive peace agreement that would permanently end the conflict. So that some of the terms that the Kellogg plan is essentially what we had to work with. That was the assumption. General Kellogg, of course, was appointed as special envoy for Russia and Ukraine by President Trump. And so the terms that he issued initially, his first kind of template for peace terms was in May of last year, and there were many flaws in it. It has a few good ideas, but a few major deal breakers from the Russian perspective. One is that it would not rule out Ukrainian NATO membership. It would merely postpone it with some kind of moratorium, say 10 to 20 years. Under which Ukraine would agree not to join NATO during that period, and then it could after that. And then also it would include tens of thousands, perhaps up to 200,000 peacekeepers. NATO peacekeepers would come enter Ukraine and guard the Ukrainian border, which of course is why it was the NATO troop presence that caused Russia to invade in the first place. We only had 1,000 troops back when the war started. In Ukraine. And then the last one had to do with the size of the Ukrainian military. Basically, what the Kellogg plan was, and this was rumored as late as last month, is that he wanted to see us not only not decrease the size of the Ukrainian military, but actually build it up and modernize it with heavier weapon systems. So needless to say, all those three planks were deal breakers from the Russian perspective. With this leak plan, the first two objective terms have essentially been taken away. So this plan would mandate that Ukraine never join NATO, and thankfully Trump's actually said that. He's come out and said that he according to Russian Minister Sergei Lavrov, Trump promised Russia that Ukraine would never join NATO. So that's taken care of. And then the other one is, as far as the troop issue, the size of the Ukrainian military, that's still a problem. So the leak plan says that Ukraine would not have to reduce the size of its military. Russia's never going to accept that.
So right now, the estimated amount of troops is somewhere in the neighborhood of, I want to say, 880,000, somewhere close to 1 million. Is that correct? for.
So that's not the actual. That's what Zelensky is claiming, and your viewers need to understand that Zelensky lies about almost everything. I mean, he just invents pie. He's worse than Joe Biden. When he's saying no joke. That's when you knew he was lying. As being as honest as you could possibly be. Zelensky doesn't warn us by saying no joke. He just lies and makes up stuff out of thin air.
So how many troops would you say they have?
So the best estimates I've seen of Ukrainian troop levels are 350,000 active duty troops. So initially they had, I think 200,000 when the war started. They built up to about 1.2 million, according to Ukraine's then Commander-in-Chief General Zaluzhny, by November of 2022, and now they're about 350,000. So they've lost, obviously, the difference, between 1.2 and 350. I think that's like 850,000 less troops that they have now. So that's a huge loss. And the desertion rates in the Ukrainian military are out of control. I mean, there's all these videos where they're rounding up forcibly, press gaining Ukrainian men off the street. They're like trying to flee as if they're being pursued by violent criminals, and it's heartbreaking. I mean, they're doing everything they can. They know it's kind of a suicide situation if they serve in the Ukrainian military. It's just it's whether they die 3 days after they get deployed to the front, or 3 months, or a year. I mean, just the death rate the casualty rate among Ukrainian troops serving has been somewhere in the 70 to 80% range. So it's like,
whoa,
if you're lucky, you'll get wounded, and it won't be severely wounded. It'll take you off the front, and then hopefully you find an excuse not to go back. So this, needless to say, I mean, this is really, demographically speaking, this has been extremely destructive to Ukraine and its ability to regrow its population anywhere near pre-war levels. I mean, that's not going to happen for a decade at most, probably 2 decades. I mean, it's really that bad.
How much? Okay, so a huge percentage of the loss of life is men between the ages of 18 to in their 40s.
Yeah, so it's actually most of the men that have been killed off or severely wounded and out of action are between the ages of 25, really more 27 to kind of early 40s. And currently, like the average Ukrainian soldier is in his 40s or 50s. So they've really kind of lost that whole population. Male population has been mostly wiped out between the ages.
So
why don't
they have so many? Why don't they have their 16 to 25-year-olds serving, and 16 to or are they fully 100% serving?
Yeah, so Ukraine has a really interesting situation where they view for whatever reason, they view the 18 to 25-year-olds as kind of the irreplaceable generation. They usually, I think we would think it'd be more older, because the older men in their mid 20s to 40, those are the ones that are having families and reproducing. Whereas the 18 to 25-year-olds, a lot of times they're not even married, let alone having kids. But for whatever reason, Ukraine has banned any Ukrainian men ages 18 to 25 from being conscripted. It used to be anyone under 27 would get a free pass and not have to be drafted. Now the age has been reduced to 25. The problem is, Zelensky, is being pressured by Mike Waltz, national security advisor to Trump, to reduce the age to 18 to massively increase their draft pool so they can replenish their massive losses. Because I think even, members of the Trump administration have some idea. I don't think President Trump knows the true level of Ukrainian losses, but they have a better idea than they're claiming. So that's why, obviously, there wouldn't, if they had 880,000 troops and Russia had only 600,000, as Zelensky is claiming, Ukraine wouldn't be losing the war right now. I mean, heck, they might be, they'd be driving with the new offensive down to the Azov region, or minimally just holding all their territory, and they've been losing across the front. So obviously, that's a huge lie. But yeah, if he tries to draft the 18 to 25-year-olds, it's guaranteed his popularity would sink, and he would basically be signing his political death warrant. So he can't do that.
Well, folks, I want to mention that we now have our call screener with us, our vaunted stellar producer, Dwayne, is joining us, and he wanted to let you know that should you want to call in, we do have an open line available for you at 385-899-2134. And I just want to verify that that is the correct number. Yes, I was right. 385-899-2134. Now, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on, let's kind of fast forward to what's happened over the last 48, 72 hours over the weekend. Europe's crowing that they're not being allowed at the big boy table. And I kind of say, well, when you're 5 years old, the equivalent of a 5-year-old in your ability to perform, you don't deserve to be at the big boy table. And maybe that's just, I admit, I would be the ugly American if I was anywhere everywhere in the world. I'd be the ugly American, I'd be wearing the Dallas Cowboys shirt and saying, yeah, my country's better than yours, Okay, maybe I wouldn't be quite that brash. But let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on how Donald Trump is trying to handle this? Is he not being strategic enough? Is he not being wise? And are you concerned that the peace deal is not done already?
Well, I mean, certainly if he had adopted my peace plan, he could have ended the war in his first week in office. I was under no pretension that he would do that. I am happy to say that a member of Trump's national security team at the cabinet level has received a copy of my peace plan. So I'm hoping that they draw additional ideas from it. Thus far, I think, other than the speed, I think they've been implementing, something very similar to what I proposed. So, yeah, that's my main concern. But the main issue is that, Trump has acted to normalize Russian diplomatic relations, U.S. diplomatic relations with Russia. That's a sea change. The reason that the EU and Ukraine are not invited to participate in the negotiations is because they were invited to join peace negotiations by Putin over the last 3 years, and they've refused to do so. They just like Biden, they've refused to even talk to Russia about peace. And they have the truth is they have zero interest in a peace deal right now. They're doing everything they can to oppose and sabotage it. So,
okay, why is that the case?
So, there's this idea that's been propagated by folks like UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, that if Ukraine loses the war, then suddenly, Western global hegemony comes to an end. And perhaps there's some truth in that. But, my question as an American is why would we even want Western global hegemony? Because Western global hegemony is a policy that's been disastrous. It's gotten the U.S. into endless regime change wars. We've lost tens of thousands of American lives, multi-trillion, $8 trillion in the Middle East alone. We're spending $100 billion a year to station 100,000 troops in Europe. We're getting zero return for our money's worth. And I think Trump understands that. Trump understands that, the 300+ billion we've sunk in Ukraine has produced nothing of value whatsoever for the U.S., for our national interests, either economically or militarily. We've essentially unilaterally disarmed the U.S. militaries to make us unable to fight the great power war because we've given a vast number of our most advanced weapon systems and munitions to Ukraine, and Russia's just gobbled that up. They've all that's been expended, or almost all of it's been expended, and Russia's still winning, and they're still incurring 4-to-1 Ukrainian casualties to every one Russian. So that's been a disaster. 100 billion a year doesn't buy the U.S. any security. In fact, if Trump had followed through on his desire to leave NATO in his first term, the U.S. wouldn't have been involved in the war in Ukraine. In fact, there may not have been a war in Ukraine at all. And if it had been, it would have been fought as a proxy war between the EU, our European NATO allies, and Russia. So it would have likely ended long ago, because the only reason that our European allies behave so confrontationally with Russia is because they believe that they have the U.S. backing it up, because
Right.
our nuclear arsenal is far less than Russia, but it's large nevertheless. And Britain and France have quite small and limited nuclear arsenals that together don't even come close to what the Russians have. It's far less. And so if there was a war with Russia, between NATO and Russia that went nuclear, I mean, NATO would be annihilated. Russia would be almost untouched. They'd be able to shoot down pretty much almost every nuclear missile that was fired at them by the the UK and France. So there's a lot of reasons why the EU they've adopted the Biden philosophy, which is that NATO should have this imperial policy to expand NATO into Ukraine. And that's really what this war has been fought over. It's not being fought over Russian imperialism, because Putin's not trying to expand Russian control into Ukraine. He's trying to drive NATO out. NATO did have a military presence, which a lot of people don't want to admit. Before the war, we had, I think, 16 to 24 CIA spy bases. We had, all kinds of military cooperation. We had joint military exercises, both in the Black Sea and in Ukraine itself. That was pretty much on an annual basis. And so those are all the reasons. And Trump recognizes this. He recognizes that the only reason that Russia invaded Ukraine is that Biden kept repeating every year. He said, Ukraine's going to join NATO. And it was basically just a green light for Russia to invade every time he said that.
Okay. How much of it? So let me ask you this. Actually, I'm gonna make a point and then get your thoughts on it. But I did a quick look up on Google. Supposedly the percentage of the defense budget of the United States overall budget is somewhere in the neighborhood of 13%. The United States is asking the NATO and Europe to increase their defense spending to somewhere in the neighborhood of 5%. I'm looking at Donald Trump going, why don't you say you guys need to increase it to the same level? I'm sorry. And I think this brings in a little bit of Vance. Vance going over there and saying, hey, your DEI bullcrap is what's gotten you guys to this point today. And it's all because you feel you can lean on us, the United States, and that we'll pay for you and we'll bail your keisters out. What if Europe would have been spending somewhere in the neighborhood of 13% of their budget?
Yeah,
would they have been able to? Would this have happened?
So the U.S. That's probably a percentage of the total budget, but the percentage, the indicator that's typically used, the measure is actually the percentage of GDP. So the U.S. has been spending 3.3% of its GDP on defense over the last several years. Most NATO countries, they have a target of 2%. I think 2/3 of them are now reaching that level. Poland's got at 4.7%. They're the only country that spends more of its GDP than we do in terms of NATO. And Trump's asking him, like you said, to spend 5%. So, if I was European, I'd say, well, why would we spend more than you do? And I would say, I would counter at 3.3. We'll spend as much as you do. That's a reasonable request to increase it to 3 or 3.3% on the Trump.
I disagree, David.
Part. But
I'd say you guys have been, resting on your laurels, letting us back you by us spending for you. You guys need to step up. Or I could say, okay, you can do that. We'll just pull our military back and we'll defend our own borders. And, how are y'all going to like that now?
Yeah, well, I think what Trump's aiming towards is some kind of burden sharing, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth kind of alluded to that when he said that,
Yeah.
our U.S. troops aren't going to be in Europe forever. And they were like, what? And they've been there 80 years. And literally, I mean, actually more than 80 years, of course, D-Day, so 81
Right.
years. But they're not going to be there forever. And so essentially what seems to be the plan is that, Trump's either going to cut our troops in Europe in half, or he might even pull them all out. And I'm talking about ground troops. Obviously, we're going to keep our air base at Ramstein. We're going to keep our naval base in Naples, Italy. But, we're talking 85,000 troops that we might pull out. And there's nothing wrong with that. We can still be a member of the NATO alliance and just have a burden sharing agreement where we provide the nukes, in the nuclear umbrella for all NATO's, all of our treaty allies in NATO. We provide the sea power, so we help maintain control and dominance in the seas, and they provide the land power. That's what the whole idea of an ally is some kind of equitable power sharing agreement. Instead, the U.S. is providing the bulk of the land power, and the naval power, and the air power. So that's not a fair arrangement. It's $100 billion down the drain every year for the U.S. that we could be spending to double the size of our nuclear arsenal to build Trump's Iron Dome missile defense system, or to harden the grid against EMP, and or even to secure the border, or to drive out the 100,000 PLA troops that have already invaded our country. So Trump's got the right idea, and Europe's they got to fall in line, or else Trump might just exit NATO altogether, which would be a welcome development, I think.
Well, we need to let you go here pretty quickly. It's 4:58. I made the commitment to you that I'd keep you just for this hour because you need to get going back east. And I appreciate you, fitting me in before you take off. Kind of the last point is, what is the biggest obstacle to peace? Actually, I'm going to ask you two questions if you leave us with this. What's the biggest obstacle to peace, and what do you think is going to happen? And what would you like to see happen? So I guess that's actually three.
Yeah, I go a few minutes over. Zelensky is the biggest obstacle to peace. He's made clear that he will not accept a U.S.-Russia peace deal under any circumstances. Trump's got to take action. The Kellogg plan envisioned that if necessary, the U.S. would suspend all aid to Ukraine in order to force them to accept a ceasefire deal. And that's exactly what needs to happen. I would go further than that. I would say we cut off Starlink access, because without Starlink access, their drone army, would not be able to operate. And it's their drone army that's, tens of thousands of drones that are keeping the Russians at bay. So all Trump needs to do is say, here's the deal. We negotiate it. It's the best possible deal, in weeks or months of negotiating that the U.S. as a nuclear superpower could get Russia to sign up to. And if you don't take it, we're not just going to withdraw aid. We're going to immediately cut off all Starlink access. And that same day, Zelensky would be like, "Oh, where do I sign? I'll sign on the bottom line." Yeah, that's the whole thing about Trump is he is not fearful of using U.S. diplomatic coercion to get other countries to do our bidding. And that can seem kind of ham-handed sometimes. I mean, when he insists that we need to annex Canada, I mean that's not a good idea. It's not a by any means. I mean, it'd be great.
Just from the demographics, we do not want a bunch of left-wing wackos, more left-wing wackos than we already have here in the United States.
No, not at all. We want Greenland, because they're a sparsely populated, country, and we can give them all kinds of rights, self-rule, autonomy, et cetera, and massive financial benefits. We can pay them all $1 million if they vote to join the U.S., but definitely not Canada. But in Ukraine, I mean, I do think it was his proposal to Ukraine that they hand over half of their natural resources was pretty bold and brazen. I mean, I kind of like it, to be honest, because they've been such a pain in the butt. But that's a perfect pretext for him to call for Zelensky's democratic ouster and to cut off all aid. But no, Zelensky is definitely the biggest problem. In terms of what I would like to see happen, I'd like to see President Trump implement my peace plan. I've actually shared that with the Russian, some Russian media contacts as well, and they don't have any direct ties to the Russian foreign ministry, so I don't know if it's going to get to the Russian foreign ministry, but I would guess that it would at some low level. And so hopefully, both sides of the negotiating table will be like, oh, what did David Pyne write up that maybe we could use to
Make it
kind of
easy on ourselves.
make it easy, yeah, and save a few weeks and maybe 100,000 Ukrainian lives, and take that option.
Okay, so my producer has a couple questions for you. I think you should be able to answer these pretty quick.
Sure.
He goes, I have questions too, and not necessarily two, but 200. Does David know how many people have simply evacuated from Ukraine, a refugee number, and who would want to stay in Ukraine? Kind of like who would want to stay in Gaza, but
Yeah, so there's about 10 million Ukrainian refugees, of which about, I think, 6, maybe 11 million, of which about 6.3 million have left the country. The other refugees are displaced within Ukraine. So, in other words, Ukrainians kind of in the eastern region that came under Russian occupation. Interestingly, a lot of those Ukrainians have actually fled to Russia. There's like 1.1 million Ukrainians that have fled to Russia, but obviously far more have fled the Russian advance and fled to Western or Central Ukraine. So I think about 11 million, almost 11 million, maybe 10.5 million overall, and over 6 million have left the country, including 700,000 Ukrainian men who have fled the draft. So some of those happened maybe before, the initial stages of the war, before, the Ukrainian border guards were ordered to shoot and kill any Ukrainian men fleeing the draft. But yeah, those are the numbers that I'm aware of.
well, I'd like to see us take some money out of Zelensky's pocket. I'll leave that as my last comment. David Pyne of EMP Task Force and The Real War by David Pyne. Please go to his Substack at dpyne.substack.com. David, last thoughts before you go.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for being such a great patriot, for having me on the show on a monthly basis. It's great we always have great discussions about the national security threats that facing America, and it's nice to talk some good stuff. Good optimistic news for a change, because I think we spent the last year wondering when the end of America would happen. Because Biden was going all out to provoke a Russian nuclear strike on the U.S. Now you don't even see that on the horizon. You see rosy times of peace and prosperity with Russia as an ally. China's still lurking in the background. They're likely to blockade Taiwan later in the year, and that could go very wrong. But I'm optimistic.
Okay, so do you think there's less of a likelihood that that's going to happen now than 6 months ago?
No, I think there's actually more of a likelihood that it's going to happen. I think President Xi made a calculation. They have great intel files on everyone. Obviously, they have great assessments on Trump as well. And I think they made the cold calculation that Trump would actually be less likely to defend Taiwan militarily than Biden. I mean, Biden made 4 out of 5 times he was asked, he said, yeah, the U.S. will be happy to go to war with China to defend Taiwan if they get invaded or blockaded. Whereas Trump, I mean, he's never said that. Not once has he said, yeah, we'll do that. And he said, oh, well, yeah, Taiwan actually, they need to subsidize us because we've been defending them so long. They need to pay us more money, more billions of dollars, and they stole our semiconductor industry. And then he told John Bolton, according to John Bolton's book, that of course, China would win a war with the U.S. over Taiwan because they're like 100 times closer, 81 times to be exact, as I calculated it. So I think that's the reason they decided to delay. I think that was the right decision for their part. I think that'll be borne out, that there is a less likelihood of us going to war with China over Taiwan. But, I think with some of his advisors like Mike Waltz and Kellogg and maybe even Rubio, there is a chance that we could go to war with China, and that's a war we can't survive. Well,
folks, as you can see right now on screen, The Real War by David Pyne. David Pyne's Substack is dpyne.substack.com. David, once again, thank you for being here so much. I'm also, next time you come on, hopefully you can be a little bit longer than you've been today. Listen, I am so grateful you took the time to come. Thank you. I appreciate you keeping that. But let's see if we can also talk about some of the other things that are going on in the Trump administration. And let's hope we're talking about this peace agreement being done or almost done, as it were.
Thanks, John. Great to be with you, and I'd be happy to be on mid-month if you want to catch up in a couple weeks.
Okay. Take care, my friend. Thank you very much.
You too.
Bye. Bye. All right, folks. That was, I'm going to say, the great American, David Pyne. We're so grateful for him joining us and being here. Today, you've got me for the rest of the show. So we'll see how far we get. I was going to have another guest, and then I didn't because some things got shifted around. No big deal. I've reached out to a couple people and said, "Hey, what are your thoughts?" And hopefully, I can share a few things with you. So let's do this. Let's just pause for the moment. It's near the top of the hour, so I'm going to restate. This is Talk with John. You can catch Talk with John here on Main Street Media, Utah on KMMU.org. You can also go to and watch many of our shows. You can go to mainstreetmedia.org and see a number of the great shows that we have. Gowd Crowd, Whit Cook, Darlene, I believe it's Darlene England, the crew from Twilla on Friday. I can't forget the name of their show right off the top of the head, but bunch of great people, shows that you definitely will want to catch. And you can go back and watch a number of shows that we've done with David Pyne, with others. Phil Lyman was on a couple weeks ago, caused a little bit of stir, made a few people not too happy with them from what was relayed to me. In fact, one of the people was like, "John, you got to get your people to get their crap together." Search KMMU on YouTube, X, and Rumble. Thank you, Dwayne. All right. So, folks, if you have things that you want to talk about, things that are on your mind, feel free to hop in the chat. But let's do this. Let me quickly give out the show mantra and the show prayer. The show prayer is, "I hope my show is a gift back to my forefathers, the founding fathers, and may it be an acceptable token to our Father above." Then the show mantra, "Where there is liberty, there is the Spirit of Christ. Where the Spirit of Christ is, there will be liberty. And the greater the Spirit of Christ, the greater liberty will be." All right. So I want to get to a couple things that have come at me that I am going to see if I... a little more time, switch my schedule a bit. One of the people that I reached out said they can't join us. Got that a little late, but that's okay. And then let's see. I want to pull up. Where is the individual? I almost gave out the individual's name, but didn't want to do that. Right here from the Deseret News, Utah House votes to remove state from voter roll system before the next election. Boy, Phil Lyman and your team and those that have been working on that, way to go. Utah House, I've already read, sorry, let me reread that headline. Utah House votes to remove state from voter roll system before next election. Wow, wouldn't that be awesome? The Utah House opted to leave the country's biggest voter roll sharing system in a 59-13 vote. Bill sponsor Rep. Katrina Lisenby said Eric has been ineffective at keeping voter rolls clean. The bill would require the lieutenant governor to join a system that verifies voters' immigration status. The Utah House voted along party lines on Friday to remove the state from ERIC voter roll maintenance system after a debate over whether there was an adequate alternative in place. HB 332 voter, and you know what? That happened to be a bill that Lowell Nelson shared with us last week and said, hey, this is something I think we need to keep an eye on. So good job to the listeners in help making that happen. Voter registration data amendments would require the state to end its contract with the election restriction or excuse me, let me start that over again so I don't get in big trouble. Election Registration Information Center, or as it's known, ERIC, by July 6th, and lists requirements for entering into an agreement with another state or third-party contractor. Utah became a founding member of ERIC. Now, this ERIC system, you think if we became a founding member, we should be making money off of that. Something tells me we're not. Somebody's making money off of us. All right. Utah became a founding member of ERIC over a decade ago. The nonprofit group was formed to help its 24 members coordinate voter registration data and update voter rolls to prevent voters from casting ballots in multiple states. Bill sponsor House Majority Whip Karine Lisenby from Clearfield made the case that ERIC has not been effective in removing ineligible voters from Utah rolls or ensuring the safety and proper use of voter data. Clean voter rolls are the foundation for secure elections, Lisenby said, reading from the state election website. However, a recent audit revealed numerous issues. What did the audit find? Lisenby began working on her bill a few years ago as several other Republican-leaning states left ERIC after allegations emerged that the organization was misusing voter data to increase voter registration amongst likely Democrats. But following a legislative audit report released in December, which did not mention ERIC, Lisenby, let me adjust my screen a little bit. Lisenby decided to expand the scope of her bill to incorporate a number of other recommendations to clean up Utah voter rolls. The audit identified over 1,400 deceased voters who were still on the voter rolls. Of these individuals, 700 likely received ballots and 2 cast a vote in November 2023 elections. The legislative audit also highlighted a lack of compliance among some county clerks in conducting post-election audits, ensuring adequate surveillance, and maintaining proper ballot controls, which Lisenby's bill also attempts to address. So let me share this. One of the things that ERIC was supposed to have done was to clean up the voter rolls, to make sure that dead people were not, to make sure if people had moved out of state that they were not being that those voter rolls had been cleaned up. That's been found. Another allegation that's been made, and I think that there is a fair amount of smoke where that's at, is that it helped the Democrats out far more than it helped out Republicans. Now, bottom line is, we just need election integrity. We need integrity in our elections, and we need to be able to count on them. So I want to say a big thank you to all of you who reached out and spoke with your elected representatives and let them know, hey, we want to stand behind 332. Now, here's the thing. We need to make sure that we reach out to our state senators to see if we can get that to happen. Also, it sounds like from just the verbiage in that bill that there is a requirement a little bit on the Lieutenant Governor, Deidre Henderson. We'll see if that happens. Yeah, I'd be surprised. All right. Okay.
Hello, John.
Yes, Dwayne, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I just wanted to add a little piece to this because I love your little news clips. We're working on recording with you some news briefs for our other shows. Goud Crowd is on Mondays, and Dan the Eagle is on Wednesdays. Political Head Trauma. That was the one you were trying to remember. Political Head Trauma. That's Holly and Jared on Fridays, and so I'm going to be working with you to do some little news brief recordings, just like what you just covered. Okay. And so your smiling face is going to.
So what you're telling me is the audience has a chance to be even more annoyed and more deal with me even more. Is what you're saying.
No, John, we love your voice. You have the face for radio. Okay.
That's right. Oh,
sorry.
Shot fired. Now, fact check true. I do have a face for radio.
But the voice is what makes it, and you and I'll work together on some of those news briefs, and just topical stuff, just like what you talked about with Eric. Eric.
Okay. I've got a family member named Eric, and he's a pretty good guy, but
that's a different story. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not too much of a fan with the Eric for the voter registration stuff.
And you said that Utah's one of the founding members. Well, there are a lot of states who have just dropped out of Eric because their promises have not been kept. Okay.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna go back to waiting for a call, and you can continue.
And the call-in line is 385-899-2134. That's 385-899-2134. And to those of you that are watching on, both Main Street Media Utah and on our website, as well as viewing this on YouTube, feel free to reach out.
We got YouTube, we got X, we got Rumble, we got our website, and our audience is growing.
So, bottom line is, feel free to call in, share your thoughts, and I am the kind of guy, so some of the audience might know I used to do a show on K Talk Radio, and I was infamous for saying, and I'll say this right now: open lines, call in with what you want, and we'll go there. There was more than once that the audience played Stump the Host and won. But there's most things that our viewers and listeners are interested in. I have some idea of a little bit of what they might be talking about. And the bottom line is call in and you might be able to stump the host. Who knows?
Well, and your lonely call screener is waiting. Okay.
A lonely call screener.
Your lonely call screener. I'm dropping out. It's all yours.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Dwayne is one of the good people in this world, folks. Definitely one of the good people. Okay, so it looks like Kash Patel, according to, let's see, Kash Patel passes key Senate confirmation vote, confirmed. So looks like he will be. Let me get into this article because I'm not exactly sure if it's gotten out of committee or if it's what the story is here. So Kash Patel has passed in a culture vote by a margin of 48 to 45. Patel's final confirmation vote could be as soon as Wednesday. The full Senate will take two key confirmation votes at 5:30 p.m. to confirm another gentleman, but Kash Patel has been one of the leading voices against the deep state. All right, so Adam Schiff calls Kash Patel's confirmation a terrible tragedy. You know what? Let's see if we can play this. And Dwayne, let me know if this doesn't pick up. Let's see if I can get it to play.
If we've learned anything over the past few years, it's that devastating events can strike without warning. Global pandemic.
All right, let's see if we can get to
introducing the Ungun. The
holy moly
platform. Lightweight and simple to use. It uses an easy to load.
All right, let's see if we can get this to go. We went through the commercials on this. And right there I see his not so smiley face. Looks like this doesn't want to play. Oh, great. You want to play us the ads. Well, Adam Shifty Schiff. Let's see if I can find the quote, the beginning of the quote. As President Trump noted when he nominated Patel for the role of the FBI head, he played a pivotal role in uncovering Russia hoax, standing as an advocate of the truth and accountability and the Constitution. The far left is doing an all out, all it can, and I'm going to also say people like Mitch McConnell, to prevent Kash Patel from becoming FBI chief. They know the truth is going to come out from the Comey and Ray years, and it terrifies them. Shifty Schiff, Adam Shifty Schiff, railing and fear-mongering against Patel's nomination as FBI director, noting that he is poised to be confirmed, and calling it a terrible tragedy for the country's preeminent law enforcement agency, but also the American people. Now, it is a tragedy for him because my suspicion is there's a number, we found that a number of what would be the proper term, government people have been on the take. Doge has been finding that out. That's one reason why they are doing everything that they can to fight against Doge. Wouldn't that be awesome if we had the same type of thing going like that here in the state of Utah? So after we get done with this legislative session, I'm going to invite on Tina Cannon, and I'm going to say, hey, what can you do to make something look like Doge, do something similar to what is happening with Doge? I want to get to a couple other articles that I think that I want to cover. I'll tell you this. I found it very comical that last week I was like, man, why can't I be on with this when it comes out? I was wondering, boy, it was kind of fun to watch the left have a meltdown over quote unquote big balls that was in Doge. And boy, they didn't want to mention those words. They're willing to swear and say all they want to, but they didn't want to. They didn't want to make sure that it sounded a little too masculine, right? Okay, so let's get to a couple other articles. Breaking: President Trump goes scorched earth and fires all Biden era U.S. attorneys. President Trump fired all remaining Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys on Tuesday. Over the past 4 years, the Department of Justice has been politicized like never before. Therefore, I have instructed the immediate termination of all remaining Biden-era U.S. attorneys. We must clean house immediately and restore confidence. America's golden age must have a fair justice system that begins today. Some of the Biden-era U.S. attorneys resigned in a timely manner after Trump was sworn into office, but others have overstayed their welcome. President Trump fired approximately a dozen Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys last week. A source familiar with the matter told NBC News that one of the fired U.S. attorneys received a letter from Trent Moores, the deputy director of the Office of Presidential Personnel, that read, at the discretion of the president, let me restate that. At the discretion of President Donald J. Trump, I am writing you to inform you that your position as U.S. attorney is terminated effective immediately. NBC News reported that last week. Please forgive me. I had to wet my whistle as it was. President Trump is beginning to nominate his own U.S. attorneys. On Monday, President Trump announced he is nominating Ed Martin, current acting D.C. U.S. attorney, for the full and permanent term of U.S. Attorney General for the District of Columbia. So I was told that we heard it, but unfortunately, let's see if that is back and playing yet. It doesn't look like. Let's see if this wants to play now. Nope. Darn it. Adam Shifty Shift. We can't hear the full conversation from him. Well, that's okay. We will get back to the subject matter at hand. Since Inauguration Day, Ed has been doing a great job as interim U.S. Attorney, fighting tirelessly to restore law and order and make the nation's capital safe and beautiful again. He will get the job done. So this is speaking of, let's see. On Monday, President Trump announced he is nominating Ed Martin, current acting D.C. U.S. Attorney, for the full and permanent term of U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. Ed has led a distinguished career of service, including as Human Rights Office Director for Catholic Archdiocese of St. Louis, where he supervised legal clinics for low-income residents. He later worked as a judicial clerk to Judge Pasco M. Bowman, the second of the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, and launched his own successful law practice. He has also invested his expertise in other roles, but always with the same goal of serving his community and creating a brighter future for all, Trump said. So, getting rid of some bad ones, bringing in some good ones, thank heavens. That's what we need. Judge Chutkan, remember that name? Denies Democrat AG's request for restraining order against Elon and Doge. Let's see, this happened today, or at least this came forward today. Judge Tanya Chutkan, an Obama appointee, denied a request for a reinstating order on Tuesday in response to a motion filed by 14 Democrat state attorney generals after they sued to stop Trump and Doge. The Democrat attorney general argued that the Democrat attorneys general argued that Elon Musk is operating with unchecked power since he is not Senate confirmed. Now, okay. Let me step away from the article for just a minute. Trying to figure this out. So, they're finally worried that someone who happens to be in government is not an elected official. In fact, let me see if I can find that exact words. Democrat Attorney General argued that Elon Musk is operating with unchecked power since he is not Senate confirmed. How many people at U.S. Aid were not Senate confirmed? How many people of the NGOs that are receiving money are not Senate confirmed? Quite a few. You know, and prior to Elon Musk getting in, and let's kind of leave about unelected for just a second. Let's set that to the side. Just kind of move it over here. We'll set that to the side for the moment, but I'll pick it back up. The Democrats don't have a problem with, let me put it this way, if the roles were reversed and they had one of their people in, you think the national media would have a problem with it? Not at all. Let me tell you, not in the slightest. I heard a news article, someone recently in a news clip said, well, what if George Soros was doing this? What if George asking, I want to say they asked J.D. Vance. I could be wrong on that, but someone was asking, well, what if George Soros was doing the same thing? I'm like, George Soros going in and cleaning house and taking money away from the NGOs and finding all of the overspending of money, finding that, oh man, what was it? Okay, so the oldest person alive in the world, I believe, is 113 years old. I want to say the United States Social Security has thousands, I might even be millions of people, but I know it's thousands. I want to say it's over 1 million people, but I might be wrong. Well, let's just say that it's thousands of people that are receiving money that are older than 113 years old. How could that be? Where's that money going? Joel Skousen, who was last week's guest, said, where do you think a lot of that money is going? Is it just going to line people's pockets? Some. That's where a lot of the black budget goes to, too. Interesting. So then there's another group of people that were receiving double payments from the Social Security system. So let me ask you this to the attorneys generals. Do you have a problem with him going and finding that information? Do you not want him to do that? Okay, now let's pick up not an elected official, not confirmed by the Senate. And the implication is that he wasn't voted on, wasn't voted there. That's not what the American public wanted. Literally at a number of campaign stops right at the very end, Elon Musk was like, hey, we got to get Donald Trump in, because if he gets in, I'm going to go through the entire system. I'm going to turn over everything, and I'm going to see what expenditures are going on and what falsified expenditures there are. And frankly, I wish I could find Dwayne, if you're there. Dwayne's looking up some of the numbers from Social Security. At least I think he is. Also, Dwayne, if you could quickly find, I can't see that very well. Let's see if I can. Okay, so holy moly. Okay, so I was wrong. Talk with John was wrong. I owe you all an apology. Please forgive me, because the numbers were Trump's millions of Social Security payments going to people over 120 years old. Ages 120 to 129, 3.47 million. Age people payments going to, with Social Security payments going to people 139 or 130 to 139, I believe that's 3.94 million. So if I total up all these going up to the age of 159, I'm just going to do a quick math here, and I'm going to say that's 10, 6, 7, roughly 12 million people. Holy moly. Listeners, go look that up for yourselves. It's on Libs of TikTok that mentions that. Can you pull up, Dwayne, can you pull up the Maxine Waters where she says, we don't know what they're finding on us, or something along those lines? See if you can find that real quick, because I'd like to play that. So Maxine Waters, the left is having meltdowns. Adam Shifty Schiff, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is the most disliked person in politics right now. Is Chuck Schumer. There's others that I dislike even more, but Mitt Romney's gone, thank heavens. But I would say this: I am so glad that we have. So back to Elon Musk. Elon Musk is finding all of these millions, billions. I think it's going to be adding up to over $1 trillion, if not trillions of dollars of misuse. Okay. In just a minute, Dwayne, I'm going to want you to pull that. So let me finish my thought. Literally, at the majority of the campaign rallies, if not every campaign rally, either Elon Musk and Donald Trump were there together, or Donald Trump on his own, or Elon Musk would say, we're going to step into Doge and we're going to go find where all these payments are going to, and we're going to find out the fraud. Okay, let's go ahead and let's play that. Dwayne, would you please play Maxine Waters' statement? And we're waiting. So we're just making sure the volume level's there, and let's see if we can play it.
People of this country are being violated because all of our privacy is being taken up by Elon Musk and Trump, and we don't know what all they have on us. We don't know what.
Now, Maxine Waters, something tells me that's not your real hair. First things first. Secondly,
hey, John, don't disparage our representatives, okay?
It's a good thing we're not in England or we're not in the EU, because, especially in Germany,
they come arrest you. Yes,
because they'd arrest me for that. So, did you hear what
you want to hear that
said?
one more time?
Play it one more time.
What they have on us?
They don't know we don't know what they have on us. That's the Freudian slip right there. Let's play the Freudian slip. If you can find it, Dwayne, again real quick and pull it up.
Here it comes. Hang on. Let me pop that back up for you.
Because I thought when I heard that, I was like, boom, pow. And there's other statements around that they're saying that too.
People of this country are being violated because all of our privacy is being taken up by Elon Musk and Trump, and we don't know what all they have on us. We don't know what all they have on us. People of this country.
So I'm going to say that that's the Freudian slip right there by Maxine Waters. I'm sure she will try to say, well, it's Maxine.
Crazy Maxine.
Crazy Maxine. Maxine Waters, I guarantee you she is terrified what they have on her. They know, like, this is not good. And the problem is, I wish it was just all Democrats that had the dirty money. We know Mitch McConnell's got a bunch of that money. We know that a number of other Republicans have gotten that money. That's the concern. That's
my humble opinion. Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell are two sides of the same coin. That's just my opinion. Okay.
Dwayne, you're wrong. Get back on. You're wrong.
Yeah, I've been known to be wrong. Okay.
It's worse than they're two sides of the same coin. Mitch McConnell is even worse than Chuck Schumer. Because at least with Chuck Schumer, he told you what he was doing. He would stand up about it in general. Mitch McConnell always tried to play as the conservative, as Rush Limbaugh called him. I don't know why Rush Limbaugh called him Cocaine Mitch. I'd love to know why he called him Cocaine Mitch.
Well, and you know, it's both sides of the aisle. And poor Mitch, he's really sick. I mean, he should be, you know, with his feet up, with his grandchildren.
It's elderly abuse.
Well, I felt the same way about Joe Biden. You know, I mean, they kept it hidden, and truly, they were abusing these guys. They really are. Okay.
Mitch McConnell, not necessarily so much so, because I think he has enough that he's sentient enough. I think he's with it enough that he knows.
Maybe.
No, I want to stay in power.
I'm not sure I agree with that. I mean, you've seen him seize up. There's some videos of him just completely seizing up. You know, focal strokes or something. Something's not right there. Okay.
Something really weird is going on. Now, I agree with you. Something is happening, but from what it seems like is, though, I've heard other comments that he's giving at other times where he seems like he knows exactly what he's saying. So,
well, the operative word there is he seems like he knows what he's doing. Okay. I mean, there should be term limits. You know, it's, man, it's like these people when they get to a certain age, and okay, I can talk because I'm old. Okay, but first, I would never run for some public office because I would just, that just put a target on my back. But these people should not be in government.
Well, here's what I think. I think every year they should be required to take some sort of cognitive test to see if they're losing it.
Well, and I used to be I used to think, well, we don't need term limits. We have elections. Elections are term limits, but those don't seem to work. Term limits are in order.
Well, here's the problem with term limits. I think that gives the mega parties even more control.
Yes, it's a slippery slope. But I mean, once a person has served for 10, 12 years, that should be enough. Make room for somebody else. But you're right. It's really controlled by money. Okay, it's controlled by lobbyists and money. I mean, who would vote for Nancy Pelosi? Who would vote for her? Well, she's got a lock. She's got a lock on the office. Okay.
And she's got millions and millions of dollars.
Wonder how she did that
okay, so here's the reason why we know why they're so stuck in power is because we're seeing US aid proving this out, that these elected officials, these elected representatives, let's call them elected representatives, are sitting on the boards of these huge NGOs getting huge paydays.
Well, and
their family is getting paydays.
How did Nancy Pelosi get to be so rich by just being a representative? Well, insider trading, lobbyists, yes. And interestingly, the USAID is just the tip of the iceberg. USAID is approximately 1% of the federal budget, all inclusive. But now they're starting to look at Social Security. Okay. And like you said, like we showed, all of those people who are over 100 years old come on.
Over 120. Over 120. It wasn't just over 100. It was over 120.
Yes.
Past the oldest known living individual in the world who happens
120, 130, 140, 150. It's like, no. Stop that.
Quick math, that was around 12 million people.
Who probably, in all likelihood, statistically, they're not with us anymore.
Not only they're not with us, their kids aren't with us.
Yeah, well, okay.
Some of their grandkids are not with us.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go let you go back to your rant after I've ranted, and yeah, I got to disappear for a couple of minutes. I got a couple of tech buttons to push, but I'll be listening. Okay.
Got it. Well, we're going to be coming up we're going to end the show a little early today, I think, but not. We're still got a few bit more minutes. So the bottom line is, folks, I am so grateful that we've got Doge. We've got Elon Musk out there. Now, let me be clear. I said I'm grateful for him. I am really worried about him. I think if there was ever the case of someone who might be the Antichrist, I very well think it could be Elon Musk. John, how can you say that? Because my reading of the New Testament revelations is that it is going to be the power keepers of the world that the Antichrist comes from, not necessarily even from the governments of the world. So we'll see what happens. But I would say he's got to be one of the 5 to 10 leading people. But at this moment, he's doing a lot of good things. let's hope he's a decent person. Joel Skousen says he thinks that he's. So I brought this up with Joel Skousen. I said, there's a part of me that wonders, is Elon Musk the Antichrist? And he's like, I don't think he is. I don't think he's that bad. I sure hope so. I hope Joel Skousen's right. Joel is pretty good at reading people. All right, let's go on to Judge Chutkan on Obama appointee denied a request. So the Democratic attorneys general argued that Elon Musk is operating with unchecked power since he is not Senate confirmed. Blue states such as Arizona, and Arizona, I hate that's were used in the same sentence. Michigan, Rhode Island, New Mexico, California, Massachusetts, and others filed a lawsuit against President Trump, violated the appointments clause of the Constitution when he created Doge and gave Elon Musk unchecked power. Now, Elon Musk actually reports there's a couple people underneath him, and one of the he's under the Department of Treasury, from what I understand. The Attorney General argued that since Elon Musk is not Senate confirmed, he should be barred from issuing orders to anyone inside the executive branch. Well, bottom line is, I don't have any problem with it. And, as I was saying earlier, they said, well, what if George Soros was doing this? Well, if George Soros was cutting out the fat like Elon Musk is doing, then I would applaud him too. Good luck with that. They just fired the whole privacy team, Trump OPM, in response to CNN FOIA request for records related to security clearance of Musk and Doge team. The Trump administration of personnel management fired off a snarky email to CNN inquiring about the records related to security clearances of Elon Musk and his Doge workers. CNN submitted a FOIA request for records related to security clearances of Elon Musk and his Doge team. The Trump's OPM, and that's Office of Personnel Management, responded to CNN with a savage email basically saying, good luck, because we fired the entire privacy team. Good luck with that. They just fired. That was a double repeat, so sorry about that. Somewhat on me. They just fired the whole privacy team. An email from OPM said in response to CNN's FOIA request. The Office of Personnel Management covers 3 main categories, according to its website. They set and enforce the background check process that determine individuals' fitness to serve in the federal workforce. They provide human resource policies, services, and oversight to federal agencies so they can hire and manage workforce effectively. And they develop and administer quality, cost-effective employee benefits programs, including the Federal Retiree Pension Program. So, there's going to be a few less people working there. I'm not saddened to hear that go, I must admit. Democrat Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs vetoes bill to speed up vote counting process. Oh boy. Something tells me they're doing something like that here in Utah. Postmaster General Luis DeJoy to step down. And Pope Francis now has pneumonia on both lungs and worries mount about his health. A nasty MSM begins speculating about his health. January 6th, Patriots will be outside DC jail calling for the release of all the remaining hostages. All of them need to be released. I'm sorry. This is one area where Donald Trump doesn't completely have it right. Every single one of them. No one committed murder. We can't prove exactly how and when the fights were started. Excuse me, with when the fights were started between the J6 protesters, peaceful protesters, and then they had tear gas shot in. Kind of makes you wonder what happened. So there are few individuals still being held there. Jeremy Brown, Edward Kyle, Benjamin Martin, Taylor Toronto, and Elise Castanades. In a powerful demonstration of resilience and unity, former January 6th political prisoners Jake Lang will lead a protest tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time outside the Washington, D.C. jail. This marks Lang's first return to the facility since his release following a sweeping pardon by the President Trump that liberated over 1,500 individuals connected to January 6th events. The protest aims to demand the immediate release of the remaining 5 January 6 detainees who are unjustly held by the deep state. Jeremy Brown is a 17-year Green Beret veteran lauded for his patriotism who remains incarcerated. This guy, I believe it was the FBI came to him and said, "Hey, we want you to go undercover and turn against all these people that are going on January 6th." And he said, "No, go take a hike." And they planted a grenade on him. So the bottom line is they have not received a fair trial, and not even from now, fair trial, you could just say they didn't receive a fair trial because they were not in front of a jury of their peers. Over 95% of the jury pool that these guys were tried in were Biden voters. There's no way they can receive. Well, let's set that aside. The defense was not given full evidence. Absolutely terrible, folks. And that's why they need to happen. We've got film of individuals being taken by the Capitol Police in behind an area, the cuffs taken off of them. Supposedly they were a Trump supporter, fist bumped and let go, given high fives, pat on the backs, smiled and everything. So the bottom line is we know that they had a bunch of bad actors in there. Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs on Tuesday voted a bill to suspend Arizona's voter counting process, vetoed a bill to speed up Arizona's voting counting process by requiring in-person mail-in ballot drop-offs to be completed before Election Day. Under the new law, voters would still be allowed to send in their ballot or deliver their ballot to the county recorder's office by 7 p.m. on Election Day, but early in-person drop-offs in ballot drop boxes must be completed by 7 p.m. on Friday before Election Day. Let's see if I can get this article up. Global cooling. Temperatures expected to fall to record 50-degree below average. Brace for deadly winter storm. Well, that's not hitting Utah. At least I hope.
I need to show you how to pop these things on the screen while you read them, John. We'll work on that.
Okay. We will work on that, folks.
You can share any tab, just like I do. You can share any tab. You can share your X. You can share news articles, whatever you want. Okay.
All right. Well, that's interesting.
We'll make it happen. How do you think I do it? I just push buttons.
Well, I thought because you were the awesome producer that you knew how to do that stuff.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Staff.
All right. Well, let's listen to this because
I'm gonna bail because I got other things to do. But go ahead and finish up your show, and we'll talk.
Okay.
Good night, John.
Good night, my friend. Thank you for being here. God bless you, brother. All right, folks. I am pulling up this is Stephen Miller, roast a CNN anchor, and anytime we can show that, I want to do that.
For policy. Stephen, thank you so much for taking time for us. So who is in charge of Doge?
The President of the United States.
He's the administrator of Doge?
No, the Doge is what was formerly U.S. Digital Services. It's an agency of the federal government. That reports into the office of the executive office of the president, which reports to the president of the United States.
Okay.
The way that Article 2 works is a president wins an election, and then he appoints staff, including myself, including Mike Waltz, including Susie Wiles, including Elon Musk, and those staff report to him.
Okay, well aware. So Elon Musk a week ago answered a question about transparency at Doge. This is how he spoke about Doge.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, our actions, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent.
But you hear him there. We post our actions. All of our actions are maximally transparent. Does Elon Musk know he's not in charge of Doge?
Okay. Maybe she doesn't understand the English language. When you're like part of a group, part of a committee, isn't it our decision, our work, things we're working on? You know, let me ask you this, CNN anchor lady, white CNN anchor lady. What if that had been in, you know, Biden's administration, and had been some black guy saying that we, using our, something tells me you wouldn't be saying that.
The president runs the government, then the president appoints advisors, including Elon, including myself, including all the other staff here at the White House, and then those staff in turn execute the president's commands and directions to all the agencies of the federal government. This is how democracy works, something that we treasure in America.
Oh, okay. Get away from the democracy talk. We're a republic, a constitutionally limited republic.
People go to the ballot box, they elect the president appoints staff, the staff that administer his orders and directives across the whole U.S. government.
Okay, Stephen, I get that, but this is important because we want to talk about who's making the decisions here. There were 300 employees, the National Nuclear Security Administration, you know about this. They were fired. The agency had to rescind those terminations because these were employees who were critical to maintaining the nation's nuclear stockpile. So then who is it making those decisions of which federal employees are terminated?
Well, in that case, the Secretary of Energy would be the one. So what you're describing with the cuts in the Department of Energy, those are directed by the Senate-confirmed Secretary of Energy.
Okay, so that was the Secretary of Energy's mistake.
Well, I wouldn't use the term mistake. I would say that it's pretty standard when you're downsizing government. You make cuts, you assess those cuts, you see who needs to be rehired, who needs to be kept, who needs to be
That's not what happened here, though, Stephen. You know that. They were rescinded.
Things.
These aren't normal things.
I understand that even a temporary interruption in federal employment is a great crisis and catastrophe for you and for CNN. What the American people see,
and so why is this okay? I am so glad he brought this up, and I'll try to make this quick. And I wish I would have done this sooner. Why is it that CNN and MSNBC, NBC, CBS, ABC, and all the lamestream Democrat media, the communist, so like CNN, communist news network, why do they have such big problems with all these people being let go? It's because it takes away their access. It is better for Democrat lamestream media to have a large government. Why? Because they have more areas that they can report on, one. Two, they have access. And it's all about access for the Democrat lamestream media. They want access. I don't need access to do this type of information and information sharing. So they have to stop so many people from being let go. Why? Because it cuts away their access. It cuts away access. Not only that, as we know, they've been getting millions of dollars from the United States taxpayers to keep their newsrooms up and running. So what happens is these newsrooms go to Reuters, they go to the Associated Press, and they go to other places to find different news articles, and they bring them up just like I do to bring them up to you. They don't generate their own stuff. They don't bring on guests and actually talk to them back and forth about like the issues like we did with David Pyne today. No, they've got to have access. And when there's fewer people there, they're less willing to talk to you because they don't want to lose their job. That's why. That's the key. They don't want to lose access. So, folks, this has been Talk with John. Keep that in mind. Every time that you hear the lamestream media, the lamestream Democrat mainstream media saying these things, why are they saying it?